Hello, everybody. We are so excited to have Crystal Simmons join us today for our Bosscast. We're talking about getting unstuck in difficult conversations. Crystal Simmons is the founder of Crystal Clear Purposes, where she offers coaching, speaking collaborations, and hosts the Unstuck Yourself with Crystal Simmons podcast. She believes that everyone deserves to speak up, be heard, and be valued for their unique contributions. And when businesses listen, they can literally change the lives of their employees and customers. Crystal started out as a radiology clinical coordinator and instructor in 2014 and moved up to chief technologist of radiology 3 short years later. She experienced firsthand the cost of voices not being heard in organizations. She worked long hours, strived to train and empower her team of more than 50, but ran into continuous roadblocks with leadership. They didn't want to hear about employee dissatisfaction and unsafe conditions and shut down her attempts to shine a light and improve the situation for everybody. So now in her coaching and corporate work, Crystal empowers her clients to speak uncomfortable truths that are difficult to say, but make the biggest difference when brought to light. She also speaks on topics of leadership, effective communications, and discovering your path. Crystal lives in Richmond, Virginia with her husband, Devin, and their schnoodle shoes. I love that. And during the pandemic, Crystal rediscovered her love for being outdoors and has made it a daily priority, whether it's riding her bike through the neighborhood, blasting old school Mariah Carey, or running with her husband in dog shoes around the clubhouse to watch the geese sing and bathe themselves in a large nearby reservoir. She holds a bachelor's of health science and continues her education by receiving her coaching certification with IPEC's Core Energy Coaching Program. So again, Crystal, we're so glad to have you here, and I will turn the screen over to you, and thank you.
Thank you. Such a lovely intro. I love hearing about myself. It was uncomfortable at first, but I appreciate it. And I'm gonna share my screen and welcome everyone who's here live, but those who will watch and listen later. I'm Crystal, like Michelle said, and I am a coach, I am a speaker. And I do host a podcast titled Unstuck Yourself with Crystal Simmons. Basically, I'm sharing personal stories when I was stuck in my career, relationships, my thoughts that got me stuck, and habits that had me stuck. One in particular being the topic of discussion today, avoiding difficult conversations. Putting it off like, oh, it's no big deal. It's nothing, like just dismiss them. Or I found myself saying, I don't want to complain. I'll just ignore it. It'll go away. Can anybody else relate? You can raise your digital hand or give me a little heart if you're on. But after today, when you're watching this, you will want to take the first step to unstucking yourself in difficult conversations, because you'll have tools to do so successfully. And basically, you'll have that feeling of not wanting to avoid creating connections and not wanting to avoid helping and working with your employees or strengthening that connection with your partner or your friends. So question, is anyone nervous right now? Maybe a little bit. So it's completely normal to be nervous, especially because talking about this is not easy. Otherwise, we would be doing this without a thought. And I know that some may not even know what to expect, so that can create nervousness. But I want to shout out kudos to you for listening, for showing up live, for listening later, because it is major. And I want you to celebrate that and give yourself a hand for being here and wanting to know and learn more. So take a moment, and I want you to really show up fully right now and being open and willing to just change. Be present, try not to check your phone or your email, and just gift yourself this time and honor others who might share their stories too, keeping them confidential, not sharing them with anyone else that's not here. If you agree, please type it in the chat for me, just so I know that we're all on the same page. And I'll wait and making sure I can actually see the chat. All right. So I'm gonna say we all agree, right? So when you think about a difficult conversation, what tends to fill your brain or your body? What comes up? Do you get butterflies? Do you instantly kind of shrink? Do you just feel kind of, if I have this conversation, it's going to end bad. If I say something, nothing good could come of it. It is normal to feel that way because in the past, maybe that was the outcome. So your brain has held on to that feeling. But I want to ask you, how would it feel to think the thought of if a difficult conversation comes up, you have the thought of, I can do this. Our time together will allow you to practice a technique to unstuck yourself from avoiding or dismissing difficult conversations, so much so that you will want to take the first step of unstucking yourself in difficult conversations in the future. So before we begin, I want us to do a quick breathing exercise. And the reason why we do this, I do this with my coaching clients before we get on a coaching call. It helps to reduce the stress. It helps to reduce our blood pressure. It increases our energy and our endorphins, which are the feeling good chemicals in our body. So if you can, just sit very comfortable. Make sure your back is straight. And if you're comfortable, you can close your eyes. If you feel more comfortable with just a soft gaze looking down, you can do that. But just be very present in this moment. And I'm going to ask that you take in a deep breath. And when you do so, you're filling your belly, not your chest. So that requires you to place a hand on your belly so you can feel the rise of your belly as you inhale. Take a deep inhale. Belly rise, and then exhale, your belly shall fall. We're going to do this 5 times. So deep breath in, belly rise, exhale through the mouth as your belly falls. Deep breath in through the nose, exhale through the mouth. 2 more times. Deep breath in through the nose. Feel your belly fill, rise, and exhale as it falls. And last time, make it the biggest deep inhale. Slow exhale out. Well done. So at this moment, I will ask for you to write down one difficult conversation that you have been avoiding, that you have been dismissing, that you have been delaying on having. It could be something that happened just yesterday. It could have happened years ago. But with paper in front of you and your pen, write down one difficult conversation. I'll give you a few seconds. And as you write out this difficult conversation that you've been avoiding or delaying or just brushing off, like it's not that big of a deal, but you keep thinking about it. In avoiding that difficult conversation, what has that cost you? Meaning, in me avoiding having a difficult conversation, has it cost you a friendship? Has it cost you a connection? Has it cost you a promotion? And the last question I want to ask is, what have you gained by avoiding or dismissing this difficult conversation? Have you gained more time to yourself? Have you not having to explain yourself over and over and over again? Have you gained silence and some form of peace? And the reason why we look at the cost of avoiding the conversation and the gain, because when the cost is greater than the gain, that is when we tend to change. So recognizing, why am I avoiding this? Is it because it allows me to not have to explain myself to certain people over and over again? That's my gain. But is it costing me deeper meaning connections? Is it costing me a promotion? So what I want to do is shift over to our image here. Make sure I have her in the center if y'all can see it. And this is our 5 easy steps to unstucking yourself in a difficult conversation. And we'll go into those in detail in just a second. But in all honesty, who feels like the picture on the side where you hear about the difficult conversation, you're in it and you're like, I don't want to talk about this. Pillow up, covering your face, you're hiding. We just want it to go away. And that is normal. Typically, we do not want to feel those things, but I want you to know that is normal. And the first step to unstucking yourself, to getting to those meaningful connections, to possibly getting that promotion, is to acknowledge what your intentions are with this individual. And setting your intentions could be said out loud. You could write it down, just like you wrote down your difficult conversation that you've been putting off. But setting your intentions of, I want clarity of what happened when we were talking and things kind of went left. Or maybe it's a matter of, I don't want to feel like this anymore. And maybe I'm reading into something that's not there. So setting your intentions helps you to keep focused on the topic at hand, stating the facts, because if we have too many topics, we tend to get stuck. Like, you hurt my feelings, and then you said this, and then it's like, wait, where are we going? I want clarity. Maybe we're not as close as I thought we were. Or maybe the other person was expecting something from you that you never said you would give. So setting your intentions on your sheet of paper right now that you've written down your difficult conversation, what would be your intention for having this conversation? Is it to strengthen your friendship? Make sure you have that in your mind so that you can actually process when you get to that point of, these are my intentions. The second step is choosing your safe space. So this helps to increase your confidence, your comfort level, your courage. And for me, it is taking a walk, being out in nature. There's no pressure. If this is a work situation, the office might bring about a lot of stress. So choose a place where you feel most confident, most courageous, most comfortable and relaxed. It could be on FaceTime. Maybe you don't want to do it in person. Maybe you want to do it over the phone. So you have those moments of holding the phone and somebody might say something. You're like, what is that? And you don't want them to see your face. Choose your safe space. Because when you are in your safe space, you feel more protected. You feel like you can support yourself. And that is the purpose of initiating a difficult conversation. And the third is inviting the other person. Unless you want to have the conversation by yourself, no judgment, but it's not going to be very productive. So when you're inviting that person, remember that their time is just as valuable as yours. And having the first two, having your intentions and having a safe space, will allow this to flow easily. Like, it's just clear, you're more productive. And it could sound like, hey, Michelle, you've been on my mind. I was wondering if we can meet up on Wednesday to catch up. You're just setting the stage of, I've been thinking about you. Can we talk? Without having that, hey, we need to talk. No one likes that. No one's like, oh, it sounds like you're really stressing or you're really concerned about something. You want me to talk to you. No one's excited about that. It also could sound like, hey, Michelle, how does your Wednesday look? I was wondering if we can get together to chat. All right, Wednesday's free. I'm good. Cool. You meet up because your intentions are pure. Your intentions are, I just want clarity. If you go into it without the image of is you versus me, it releases the stress and it doesn't make anybody the victim or the bad guy. Coming in with, it's not me versus you, but it's a we. I'm trying to get to a solution for we, for us, takes a totally different perspective. So the fourth, which I love this one, and is a great reminder of the breathing technique that we just did. Taking in that big deep breath of, I want to be clear with my purpose by stating the facts. When me and you got together last week, you mentioned something about my performance at work. And I wanted to get clear on what popped into your mind to say that. If it's work related, if it's a relationship, you had mentioned something, and I was curious of why you mentioned that. So be clear with your purpose. Being clear is kind, being unclear is unkind. And I will say for myself, I thought being kind was not being honest, because I believe being honest was hurtful to people. I believe telling people what I thought they wanted to hear would help. And in fact, that hindered me from connecting with that person, but also for them to get a clear understanding of who I am and what lights me up and what allows me to thrive, especially in a work situation. If I'm not able to show up fully as myself with all of my skills that have been given to me, how am I benefiting you? So I want you to consider, or I would like for you to consider, asking for help, coming to that person and share that I want your help in coming up with a resolution to this challenge or this hurdle that I am perceiving as a challenge or hurdle. And it might go something like, my intentions are for us to find a solution to a problem that I perceived as a problem. It could be lack of trained coworkers. So, hey, I want to create a solution because it seems as though my coworkers are not trained properly. It's requiring me to do more work and thus allowing me to not complete my own work. Is there a solution we can create? Instead of, hey, why didn't y'all give these employees training? They're not helping me. Make it a we. It's not a me versus you. And when you put it that way, where we're in this together, it allows people to want to help and be a part of the solution. No one wants to be blamed for anything, especially if it wasn't their intentions to. So, and also personal. If you don't have help at home where you're cooking, you're doing the dishes, all the chores, and you're working full time, and maybe you're building a business on the side, going to your partner and saying, hey, when I have all of these chores at night, in addition to full-time working, taking care of the kids, building a business, it doesn't allow me to want to have sexy time with you. Can I get your help? Most people would say, yes, let's figure this out. Whether that's hiring someone else to do some of the chores. Allow it to be a we solution, not a me versus you. And the 5 is my favorite. Be curious of their perspective. Just like you have perceived it to be a challenge or a problem, they might perceive it as you want to do everything. So just be curious. We have no idea what they're perceiving that situation to be. I always say it takes 2. And instead of thinking it's me versus you, it's a we solution. But allow them to share without you creating this persuasion of, I need you to do this. It's all or nothing. And reality, life is filled with gray. And when you practice this, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Habits take time to break and recreate. And remember, when the cost is greater than the gain, we tend to change. So when you change, you create 2 beautiful gifts. And the first gift is for yourself, where you gain more self-respect, you gain self-love, you gain more confidence in the most abundant way of treating yourself with the needs that you know you want and deserve. Your brain will enjoy the feeling of, I want to do this again and again. and it will create that new habit. The second gift is to the other person. They now know how to show up for you and how to please you. No one on this green earth is walking around wanting to piss you off. I promise you. I pinky promise. No one is waking up every morning to irritate you. They want to please you. They want the chance to treat you. So they get the manual of how you want them or would like for them to show up so that you both are creating that win-win. I win and you win too. And that type of energy is extremely high. It is massive and it encourages solution-based outcomes, which is also known as reduction in problems. Nobody wants problems. So I'm hopeful and I'm very excited for you all to take the first step. And if you happen to get stuck, you can grab a date on my calendar for a clarity call with me, which is 30 minutes of ease and clarity and solutions that are uncovered by just asking deep, meaningful questions. And with that being said, I'll drop the link in the chat. But this has been amazing to share the 5 easy steps to unstucking yourself in a difficult conversation.
I love that, Crystal. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So it looks like we do have a question in the chat room, and that is, how do you keep from feeling and sounding awkward when having the difficult conversation? Do you have any coaching tips for that?
Immediately I go to, what does awkward sound like? Because typically in our brains, we think we should get things perfect. And I want to encourage people to look at, can I take the first step? It might sound awkward, but starting anything new tends to be a little awkward. And if you have that intention, that typically takes the awkwardness out of it. I've done this with clients, but I also did it for my marriage and leaving my corporate job, reducing my pay, my husband taking most of the bills, me growing a different business and thinking that I would be more successful quicker. Bless him. But internally, he was going through like, I need help. And I know she's working really hard, but we need more money. And when he came to me, it hurt because I was like, my perception was, oh, he thinks I'm a failure as a business owner. Words never came out of his mouth. He was just like, what are we doing to make sure we could save for our retirement and things of that nature? So with my coaching, because I have a coach too, I processed that. And when I came to it, I had to realize that that's not what he said. But my intentions were to be clear and say, I hear you. This is hard for me to accept, to look for a job, because I interpret that as being a failure as a business owner. And him being like, that's not even, no, where did you? So when we open up to having the conversations, you don't have to try to piece together what people are thinking, because typically we're wrong because we're not them. So yeah.
Perfect. That's great. So Crystal, I have a few questions for you, if you can answer some of them. So what do you wish you'd known when you started out as a leader? I mean, you managed a pretty big team. And going into that, what do you wish you had known before you started?
I wish I would have known what trusting myself meant and the gift of doing so. Meaning, I kept trying to be other leaders and not myself. And talking with quite a few people, they would say, this is what a leader does. And this is what is like, yeah, but how do you put yourself in there? Because when we show up as ourselves, it is so much easier. But I felt like society, and this is my interpretation, I felt society wanted it to be complicated. Like, no, you gotta like try to make it work. And I would have to say is trusting myself. That's the biggest thing.
I love that. And in terms of advice, like the best leadership advice you've ever received, what would that be, and what would you pass along to those listening?
Trust yourself.
No, trust yourself.
Every time I would talk to another leader about my struggles with my supervisor wanting me to do things a certain way, knowing that the person that I am is, I thrive with training. I thrive with being able to ask questions. Hence now I'm a coach. Like, I knew that. But when I asked, I was shut down. And instead of me being like, oh, I might have to sit on this. Maybe this is not the place for me, because you're literally telling me not to be me. So what am I supposed to do? Just pick pieces of other people? I tried. And it made me worse of a person, meaning short-tempered, didn't want to go to work, crying before I got out the car to go into work, counting down the hours, going home, complaining to my husband about it for hours, not wanting to spend time or be joyful for hours, and the cycle repeated the next morning. So my suggestion to other leaders, you have to trust yourself. You know what's best for you. No one else knows. No one else knows. And I wish I would have known about coaching back then. So I had someone supporting me through that process.
Mm-hmm. Great. And then what leadership qualities do you think are most important? I mean, we have our audience is newer leaders, they're new to the role or getting ready to move into their first leadership role. I mean, what are the qualities you think that they should be focusing on developing?
Your intuition. You can learn a new training, you can learn a new system. That is doable. Your little voice, some people might have a voice, some people might have like a feeling in their stomach, some people might know something without somebody telling them. So your intuition is like a knowing without knowing. No one's sitting you down and be like, Crystal, you like to ask questions. That is your superpower. Crystal, you like training. That is I knew that, but I didn't know it. And I wish I would have honed in on that more, where when I did so, other leaders would see me and say, oh, that's so helpful. I'm so glad you said that. I'm glad you put it that way. We don't need 15,000 Michelles. There's only one anyways. Like, just Michelle, you be you, and anyone else who's listening. There's a reason why the saying is, which I'm gonna mess it all up, so I'm not even gonna say it, but it's easier, just be yourself. Don't try to replicate someone else. So yeah, it would definitely have to be your intuition.
Yeah, that's a good one. And then could you share with us a specific time, like the biggest challenge you faced when you were in corporate?
It would, if I expand on what I said earlier, it would have to be trying to push down my uniqueness and trying to fit in the box of everyone else, knowing I'm a circle and I'm trying to fit into the square, imaginary box of ideas. Even at meetings, people would say something and then a question will pop up, like, oh, what about this? And depending on who was in the room, those who were supportive of new ideas, they loved it. I never thought about that. That's really good. And other rooms where this is the way we've always done it. Who on here has been the same person, looking the same, thinking the same, eating the same 10 years ago? Nobody. So we're changing Systems are changing, but leadership style is supposed to stay the same because we've done it that way always. It never made sense to me. So I'm here for those who maybe have not heard it. You're correct. It doesn't make sense. So definitely one of the biggest challenges was me silencing my uniqueness to try to fit in to a place. I'm a circle into a square. It didn't make any sense.
Well, speaking of meetings, like how did you keep that from like getting that rejection? How did you internally keep that from stopping you from contributing? Like, how did you push through that? Does that make sense? Am I asking that right?
It does. And I actually didn't. My boss actually told me one time, because I was being myself, asking questions. I was new. I wanted to understand. I was curious. Before we went to a meeting, she said, "Hey, I'm going to speak. You don't say anything." And I immediately thought, well, why am I here? Why am I here? So I sat down in a group full of people I had been in front of a couple of times. Thank goodness the CEO reached out to HR, was like, please check in on Crystal, because she seemed different. That was the biggest gift, that I am suffering in silence, and I don't even know if this is big enough for me to tell someone. Will they just dismiss it? Am I blowing it out of proportion? I was avoiding a difficult conversation, but really processing it, like, what just happened? And when HR reached out, I was like, hey, the CEO said, you seemed a little different in the meeting. I was like, I was just thankful that my presence was felt by the CEO who's met me a couple of times. We talked here and there, knew who I was, versus my manager, where I'm spending hours and hours with, still has no clue.
Mm-hmm.
That spoke to me heavily, and I was thankful for that moment. And that's what began, like, okay, so I'm not the only one who thinks this is just off. Now, what do I want to do with this information? Fast forward, I did start having difficult conversations with my manager, and that's where the clarity came. Hey, my intentions are to get understanding. When you told me not to speak, why was I in the meeting then? Why isn't my... And it showed me that my manager did not know how to lead. And she was not properly trained. She told me, I didn't get this training that you're asking for. I was just thrown in. I was like, and I'm sorry, that's unfortunate. But why would you want to do that to me? And that's where it hit me. She's not capable. And that is fine. I have done a lot of personal work where I used to blame her. But how is she able to give me something that she didn't even have? Now I got to look to me. Crystal, what are you going to give yourself? Instead of you looking for outside people to give it to me. And that's when I decided, okay, I think it's time for me to look elsewhere, because this isn't worth it. The cost, it was costing me way too much. And I was like, yeah, no, it's time to make a change.
Yeah, it sounds like just in that one example, you have an example of a manager who is, I mean, I don't want to say necessarily bad, but doesn't have the right skills to be a manager. And then you've also given an example of where your CEO, even though they're at the level they're at, was, involved enough and wanted to know, is everything
Yes.
okay? And I like those examples that you gave.
Good. And it means my experience was not in vain. And that's another reason why I started the podcast, because at the time I was like, why is this happening to me? But I'm thankful from all the work that reflecting, coaching, speaking has provided me peace, and allowing other people to know you're not alone. And what would it feel like to recognize that that person cannot give you what you want? Oh, then I get to choose. I don't want this. And then you get to move, you get to shift. Maybe they'll come back around, who knows? But it's a different feeling. And it's a major gift to give yourself that awareness of, they really cannot give me what I want. And I'm fighting and fighting. They're like, I don't know what you're asking for. Like, are you speaking a different language? What's happening? Like, so yeah.
And then just to shift gears a little bit, just curious, we're all working from home and mostly on Zoom calls or team meetings. What's your favorite wardrobe staple now that you're in that mode?
It hasn't changed a lot. I always went towards comfort. I am almost 5'8", so heels are not my favorite. So I don't wear them. Even when I worked in the hospital, I walk around cute flats, whether they're like strappy shoes. But now in the house, still a nice top. I'll wear slacks. Sometimes I'll wear jeans. I have on jeans right now. But I find when I'm my most comfortable, I'm more confident, I'm relaxed, my messaging is clear, versus even when I was in the hospital, if I wore something that just didn't feel good, I noticed I wouldn't speak up in a meeting or I wouldn't have those courageous conversations. So whatever, again, just like we're talking about your go-to safe space, it should be the same for your clothes. What provides you that I can do this, and I am. Whatever that might look like.
Perfect. And then one of the things here at Boss Track we'd like to ask, because we have a playlist and we're continually updating our playlists. What is the song that gets you pumped up when you need to feel a little bit of confidence?
I love music. Like, I love music. So I actually listened to it before we got on. Is Beyonce when she performed at Coachella, I think in 2018, the Netflix special. But it's on Spotify. I don't want to assume, but it might be on Apple. But yeah, Beyonce at Coachella. It's just every dancer, musician that's on that stage, because she has so many students from so many HBCUs, so historically Black colleges or universities. And just they exuded so much confidence and power. And she goes behind the scenes. If you watch the Netflix special, still on Netflix, I just love it. And it just gets me so excited because we all have that in us in our own unique way. We don't have to be on a stage. We don't have to be dancing or speaking. But even in that boardroom, even in those Zoom calls, you can show up fully yourself. The question is, are you willing to do the work to figure out what that is for you? So yeah, it always starts with you. It always starts with you.
Yeah. Well, I have to ask, did you see that reel with the little girl who had her mom made her the little sweatshirt, and
I did,
she's watching
and the little
that
boots
Netflix. Yeah, so adorable. It's so cute.
It's so good. It's just, yeah. Every time I have a speaking engagement or networking event, I'll put on there and maybe do it in shuffle or start at the beginning. But yeah.
Well, I wanted to open it up to our audience and see, other than the few questions that we have in the chat, does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask live or add to the chat before we wrap up?
In the meantime, if anybody's thinking of it, feel free they could email me if a question had popped up at Crystal, Crystal, at Crystal Clear Purposes. So Crystal at crystalclearpurposes.com, and shoot your question over. But yeah, this has been fun.
Hey there, I have a question.
Hey.
Hello. So I'm curious, right? I think we all get really busy and it's easy to not even realize you're putting off maybe one of those conversations. So are there any things you kind of look for that say, hey, maybe there's something back there that I need to sit down and do this exercise?
The question I would ask you is, did something pop up for you when I asked earlier?
It did, for sure.
I think you start there by going through the steps, writing them out, And sometimes that could spark something else where you actually write it through and like, oh no, actually, I think I'm okay with this. Case in point, I have a group of friends. Before the pandemic, I had noticed our friendship started changing. They complained a lot, just to put it simple. And I would say I complained a lot because I was in my corporate job. And once I realized getting out of that, trying to look at myself, how can I make changes? When we would get together, every conversation would be a complaint about something or a group of people. I'm like, how do we get here every single time? And I realized that it was a friendship that kind of ran its course. I did speak to one of my friends and express not even just that, there were other incidents where I didn't feel like they were showing up for me as a friend. So I had that difficult conversation. Like, I know you keep reaching out and I really appreciate it, but I need to be honest with you. And my intentions were just to be clear. I didn't want to blame. I was like, I just feel like we have grown in different directions. And she was like, I could see that. And we just kind of left it as that. It's weird, but it feels, for me, I felt more at peace saying it. I still miss them. And maybe we'll link up again in the future. But at this moment, the tug and war, like it caused dis-ease for me when we would get together or we wouldn't get together. It was just a lot of what ifs, and I like clarity. Was that helpful?
Yeah, it was.
Okay. And I have the, where is it? The download, if you want to get an email to you, click on the 5 easy steps to unstuck yourself in a difficult conversation. And you can stay in the loop with me on my email list. I send out an email once a week, and that's just updating the podcast episodes of what the topic will be about. But if you have any questions, please feel free to email me and I'll be happy to answer them within, I'm pretty good about 48 hours. So yeah. I'm so glad you joined us. And if you have another question, feel free to come off of mute and ask it, because that's why we're here, right?
Yeah, and I know we mentioned it at the beginning, but just to kind of wrap up, do you have any parting thoughts? And also, do you want to, I'd love for you to give a plug for your podcast and kind of give us a understanding of what different topics you discuss on that podcast.
Yes. Thank you, Michelle. So yes, Unstuck Yourself with Crystal Simmons. And I will stick that link in the chat as well. It began December the 1st. Hold on, because I can't do 2 things at once. I released the podcast December the 1st. It comes out every week, and it's based on situations where we get stuck. And I share personal stories of my own in my career when I worked in the hospital before I left my corporate job in 2019, but also me building a business, a product-based business, and now a coaching business. And I have guests that come on to the podcast as well from time to time to share what they're currently building, but their moments of stuckness. And one of my most recent episodes was cultivating a positive sex culture, or sex positive culture. I had never heard of the term. And so when I had the sexologist come on, she shared so many gems of how in society we have been told to show up certain ways as women, but also as parents. I'm not a parent, but I can still appreciate all the information she shared. So that was fun. We talk about imposter syndrome, and I've heard imposter syndrome. I've never, quote unquote, identified having it, because I was just like, what does that mean? Is it feeling doubtful? But is it like deep doubt? Like what? So I found an article, which I shared on that episode, where 2 ladies of color mentioning imposter syndrome being perpetuated by society for women leaders in particular, meaning we're too emotional and things like this. So then we start, well, am I really a leader if I'm emotional? And yes, because you're a human. but also acknowledging that the workplace creates the culture. Are they allowing you to express what it is you need and supporting you? Or are they judging you because you're saying, hey, I need more training? And that blew my mind. I was like, this is what I needed to hear. Because sometimes things are being told to us that we should feel this way. But like I said, deep inside, you know what's best for you. But if no one else is saying it, you're like, I don't know if I want to be the oddball. I'll just watch while we're suffering a little bit, or just feeling uneasy, or just unsure. So Unstucking Yourself with Crystal Simmons podcast is to allow others to hear stories from myself, but other really dope guests. And I ask a lot of questions because I really firmly believe that each of us have the answers, especially my coaching clients. They always have the answers. I'll ask a question, they'll sit on it, they'll ponder, and then they'll talk and they're like, oh, but wait. I'm like, I never even would have thought of that. Because they always have the answers, but they haven't been given the time. They haven't been given the space. And as a coach, that's what I do. I create the space of openness, non-judgment, and curiosity of, all right, what's the first step that you could take to go towards that goal? It could be a tiny step. And you could change your mind. It's like, I don't even want that goal anymore. Cool. It's your world. And that's the beauty. That's the beauty of coaching. So yes.
All right. Well, thank you, Crystal. I really appreciate your time. And I encourage everybody to listen to the podcast. I've listened to a few episodes and, I love the conversation. So thank you, Crystal, for being on. And I hope everybody has a good day.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us live. And Michelle, thank you for this moment. And thank you for your question too. I appreciate you. And I'm hopeful that you will unstuck yourself. You got this. So yes.
Yeah, you got this. All right.
Bye.
We'll see everybody.